All right. I think we might be live.
It looks like it on my side.
Here we go. Yes, we are. Awesome. Hello, beautiful people, beautiful Facebook friends. I'm here with my dear sister, soul sister, Crystal. And we are here to invite a conversation around rage. And Crystal, do you want to intro?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
So hi, my name is Crystal Brandt. I'm an ease mentor and I help go-getter women slow the fuck down and find a sustainable self-care practice for themselves rooted in their core values. Looks totally different for each woman. Why we're talking about rage is because rage is part of our self-care. It's actually part of our emotional spectrum. And Aurianna, we chatted last week. We were kind of feeling like a collab coming on. She's like, what do you want to talk about? And I'm like, are you sure you want to know? And she's like, go girl, bring it. And I'm like, rage, capital letters.
And I was like, yes,
Girl. And yeah. And rage, the holy rage part is what's significant for this conversation, because I think all of us have had experiences of unconscious rage that comes out sideways at people, dysfunctional rage that really hurts other people, unharnessed rage. And so with the current context of everything that is happening in the world right now, we've been given a moment to reset, to breathe. And in that pause, with all the busyness taken away, space is opening up. And in space, our bodies bring to the surface what's there to be worked through. Rage is one of those emotions that are coming up. It's one thing to work on rage by yourself. It's a whole other thing to have rage surface when the entire collective is also experiencing it. So our goal in having this conversation is to just normalize rage a bit, to maybe give it a different kind of PR spin and realize that it's just energy moving through the body. It's fire in the body. And so how can we befriend the fire within us so that we can find comfort in our own rage and therefore hold space out in the world, become powerful leaders, know our power within. I believe that rage is a key to unlock our internal power. So that's our intention with this conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for that intro, Crystal. And, Crystal and I, we were in a mastermind together for a while, like, I don't know, maybe a year and a half or something. And I remember when I was deep in some personal healing, personal integration work as I was going through my trauma training, somatic experiencing. And I remember I said to you this thing that came through when I was working with my coach around this that it felt like I was holding the rage of my grandmothers. Like that, yes, it was mine, but that I could also feel this lineage behind me, and not just the women in my genetic line, but like my spiritual family. George's
confirmation.
like, yeah.
George's like, yes, girl.
Yeah. And, in that process, I uncovered this, he's really feeling it. Grab my headphones real quick.
Okay. We've got, okay, this is what I told Aurianna. I'm like, we're going to do our best today. What matters most for all of us is that we show the fuck up. We just show up as we are. I have had a tumultuous day until this moment. Okay. Lots moving. The people are mowing the grass next door. George is having a hey day. We just like, okay, all right, we'll give it a sec, So we're just going to do our best. We're going to have a real conversation. And that's what we're here to do. Easy.
Yeah, that's really the essence of this. George hates the lawn care guys, so they're in my neighbor's yard right now, and he's having some feels about it. But we work with what we've got, right? Because this is life right now. Like we're all having to adjust and accommodate and meet the moment as it is. It's not always perfect. Literally, the lawn care people showed up right as we were supposed to go live.
But of course.
But of course. Yeah. So where was I? In this process of kind of uncovering rage for myself and like, why was I so angry? I was just there's so much anger moving through me. And it was disproportionate to what was going on in my life, right? Like, there was some stuff that wasn't going the way I wanted and may have been appropriate frustration or irritation, but it was so intense. I knew that it had to be from somewhere else, somewhere beyond this moment. And when I really dropped in and got curious with what that was, it was the rage of our grandmothers was what kept coming through. And how we as women, we've been disconnected from our power, from our fire, from our inner that which creates life and can also destroy life, that force of creation and destruction. And I felt, as I uncovered these layers for myself, I felt so much compassion for the women who've come before me, again, my genetic lineage and also my spiritual heritage, right? For the women who didn't have the space to tap in to frustration, George is feeling it again, frustration and anger in a way that was safe, right? You talked about it coming out sideways, hurting people, hurting ourselves, turning inwards.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So do you have anything you want to jump off of with that?
Well, yeah. So last year I went through an unexpected breakup with my partner of almost 3 years. And when I was going through that process, I committed to myself that I'm like, all right, okay. I just got the rug pulled out from under my feet in so many freaking different ways. I'm like, I am not signing up for this again. How do I know not to recreate this? Is to feel it all. Everything that's coming up, and I mean everything, to its core, to its roots. I was willing to just be this like warrior with my emotions and my karma and my trauma and just fucking go all in. And it was in that process where and it was actually face down in the carpet, heaving tears, just mess, just totally shattered as appropriate. But it was in those tears that I realized, I'm like, oh my God, these are not just my tears. These are not just my tears. These are the tears of all the women in my lineage that couldn't, based on survival, choose to separate from a partner because it wasn't a full soul aligned match. They didn't friggin' have that option back then, right? Out of pure survival. So where does that go? That doesn't just disappear. It gets internalized in our DNA and in our bodies. And so for so many of us that are experiencing things like rage, things like deep, just grief that makes no sense, all these deep feelings, we are the ones that our lineage sent to be the ones to transmute this energy, to feel it through, because we were born for this. This time that's happening right now, we were born to be here for this moment in time. If you are still walking planet Earth, you're supposed to be here. There's a reason. You've got something for us. Do you need to know what that is right now and go out in the world and do it? No, you do not. Your main job might be just to feel the fucking rage today. Like, who knows? But it was in those moments where I realized, like, these deep emotions, when we're really willing to go all in, we can really feel the palpable truth that it's not just our own. It wouldn't be so intense, if it was just our own. That disproportionate thing you were talking about is super huge. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a lot to be angry about, appropriately angry. The destruction of our planet, child abuse, poverty, the income disparity. It's just like if we're really looking, Like if we're willing to take off the mask of everything's fine. I'm fine. How are you? I'm fine. You're fine. Good, good. You know, like that which we kind of present to the world, and even within ourselves. I find myself doing it too, right? Where I'm just like not going there for whatever reason. I'm busy. I don't feel like it. But when we really like take off that mask and sit with what is, like there's a lot to be pissed about right now.
Just hearing you say that is permission giving. You know what I mean? Like, oh, my anger is not just this righteous self-cause here. Like there is purpose for it. And that's where so much of the truth within all of these emotions gets lost if we're not willing to feel them through. I'm looking at this point of time, right, with all this coronavirus stuff, with the whole global freaking shutdown that's happening, you know, our quarantine lives that have become a pseudo normal for right now. I'm looking at this time and I'm like, if this time just passes on by and we come out of this time grasping and grappling to just put all the pieces back the way that they were, there is a massive opportunity that is going to be lost. Mm-hmm. And Mother Nature has already given us enough chances to wake up to what's here. And if you walk away with 2 examples of 2 women harnessing their rage for more power to do more work out in the world, our job is done. And we didn't have to say a thing. We didn't have to do a thing. We just had to show the fuck up today to say, hi, I'm here. I have rage. I'm human. I just got so many examples of rage today, just today. I have cried. I've screamed. I've sweated it out. I've been embarrassed. I literally have gone through so many different emotions just today. And I'm still here. And I'm still worthy. I'm still powerful. I could be crying saying these words right now, and they'd still be as true. So we need more built-in internal permission coming from each of you to allow this part, this one part, it's one part of the emotional spectrum. If you can befriend this fire inside of you and use it for change, use it to turn the needle forward for the collective, for yourself, for your family, that's a win.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing about rage is it's the one when I'm working with women privately or in groups, I sometimes kind of stealthily track like which parts are they afraid of, right? And within myself, it's been a self-exploration too. Like which parts am I just like, do I apologize for? Or do I kind of like express, but in this twisted way where it's like I'm kind of okay with it, but like only so much as it's within these boundaries or within this box, right? And rage is the one, anger is the one that keeps coming up again and again and again as not appropriate, not allowed to go there, not safe, right? And from a somatic perspective, a lot of us are afraid of that much intensity. We are afraid of feeling so deeply. And there's layers to this, right? As women, women who were powerful, right? Empowered, fully embodied, were historically burned at the stake, right? We've been considered witches. We've been considered sorceresses. We've been punished for our power. And so there is that collective unconscious memory of what it is for women to be really powerful. And in that healthy, holy wrath of this is not fucking okay. Yeah. Like this is not okay. Even in my relationship, I have to notice the ways in which I apologize. Just this morning, I was in this really sacred bubble. I'd been meditating and prayerful, and Will came in and, he was just doing what he was doing. He wasn't doing anything wrong. And he came in and started talking to me about something. And I was like, nope. Like energetically, I was like, leave the space. And then I instantly went into like, oh my God, that was so wrong. Like to be so intense. And it's been conditioned since we were kids. Oftentimes we're told not to be so emotional. We get sent to timeout. We get in trouble for feeling our feelings. So there's a lot of layers to this as to why we don't access rage. And from a somatic perspective, it's the fight response, right? It's that protective, like, here's my boundary, here's my barrier for what's allowed and what's not allowed. And a lot of us are walking around with our boundaries being violated constantly and chronically. And if we stand up for ourselves, we get punished, we get in trouble, we don't, love gets taken away, connection is broken. And so I don't claim to have all of the answers by any means. And I do believe that this is a really important conversation for us to be having, because the more we touch in to this conversation about where are we in our relationship to rage, and some people have full access to it, but in a very unhealthy way. It burns, right? The fire within is just very destructive. And then some people are completely isolated from it, just completely shut down, have no connection at all. And those two extremes, neither are healthy to be living in. And so how do we harness this fire? Because this fire is also that creation energy. It's passion, it's zest, it's the light of life, and it's what drives us forward. And I know for myself, when all of this collective stuff started happening with the coronavirus, like, that part of me came online and was like, oh, fuck, no. Like, no. I don't even know what I'm saying no to exactly. I have some ideas, but it's just more this force inside of me that's like, I'm not going to be an inactive participant in this game that we're playing, in this thing that's happening on the planet. I don't need to understand it all. I don't need to know where we're going, but I know that I'm going to harness that inside of me, which says no in a powerful way, and then says yes to something else. Yes to life, yes to community, yes to collaboration, yes to being at the leading edge of human consciousness and exploring what's possible, because we're not going back from here. There's no going back. Life is fundamentally different from this point forward. And that rage turned inwards can manifest as anxiety, illness, a lot of tension in our body, in our mind. The texture of our mind gets really sticky and cloudy and painful and hard to be in. And so for me, part of what my prayer for this conversation and this workshop that we're doing on Saturday, which already sold out, we were like,
hello.
So many women are in this conversation right now. And I think Crystal and I both sense this is going to be the start of something. There's probably going to be more. So if you're not able to make the Saturday session, that's okay.
Got you.
Keep an eye out. There will be more. But my prayer is that it opens a door, kind of like you were talking about, Crystal, that if we just being here in this conversation, talking about rage, can open a door for exploration for you who's watching, for people who are watching, of what else is here and what else is possible, because the way we've been relating is not working. And that's what I know at this point. I know that what has been happening is not working. And so where do we go from here? That's kind of the inquiry we're all in on a very, very deep and big, massive level, collective level.
And that question has moments of overwhelming me.
Mm-hmm.
When I think about the entire world experiencing such a similar reality to me right now, they can't go to their coffee shops, they can't go out, they're just like, everybody's at home, everybody's washing their hands. That's not a US experience. That's not a Denmark. That's not an India. That's an everywhere experience right now. Just that alone my brain just starts to like, whoa, like, when have you ever heard of another event that the whole world, not just some of the world, a large part of the world, a small part, everyone is unified in this tangible experience right now? That overwhelms me. And then I go a level deeper into like the impacts of this. The impacts of this is where it gets my heart racing, gets my stomach turning. I am, we're all connected to people losing their income right now. We're all connected to people that are sick in some way or immunocompromised or nervous or anxious about this. Like, it's such a human thing right now. And so I get very overwhelmed with that question.
Yeah.
But, and what I come back to is when I feel out of control, like that out of control at such a meta level, what can I do? I can take care of me.
Mm-hmm.
This is the only thing in this entire existence that I ever had control over. But especially right now, it's right here. So if engaging your rage is one of those self-care activities, right? Explore that right now. There's plenty to help you bring stuff up to the surface, right? Mm-hmm. Everything that's getting highlighted right now was there all along, but now it's just like cranked up the volume. So dare to look there. And I also want to acknowledge everybody that's even interested in a conversation like this, okay? Because make no mistake that you are on the leading frontier. You are on the leading edge of this new world that's being created. The fact that you're even interested in a conversation like this innately means you're one of the leaders. Why? Because you're doing your work, because you've got tools, because you're willing.
Yeah, I think that's the key, is like just even the willingness to look, the willingness to touch the parts of our being that we've avoided.
And get burned.
Right. Yeah. Sitting in the fire and letting it burn away. Oof. It's a small task, like letting it burn away all that's not truly in support of life.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And also, if I may, like, Mother Earth is the one that's raging right now. She's pissed, like, and she should be. She's got this, when this first started, I started to see this vision of like her squeegeeing all the fear and the anxiety out to the surface, like pushing out through the pores of the earth. Guess who the pores are? Us, right? Like, we get the gift of living on the surface of her. We are gifted with the opportunity to be caretakers of her. And we've been not doing such a good job, right? So when we're also talking about like the rage isn't just yours, when you're willing to transmute that rage, you're doing work for her. Mm-hmm. You're doing the work for her. You're giving back to her. You get to live on this planet every day. You get to have lungs in your lung, or air in your lungs. You get to wake up this morning. That's a gift. Mm-hmm. So if you are one of the ones that are choosing to use that gift to help her in that way, to help your body in that way, to help your spirit in that way, to help your lineage in that way, that's big freaking work. And that's not the stuff we're going to get paychecks for yet.
I joke sometimes. I'm like, being conscious and so aware is like a full-time job. I wish
so. Literally.
And you're so right. And I think that's a part of the invitation and the opportunity that's here, is like, how do we inhabit this world that is currently run and organized by money and a monetary system, and do this deeper work? And it's like a constant recalibration, right? It's like, oh, okay, like the whole world is moving from this brick and mortar paradigm. Obviously the digital world has been around for a while, but it's like everything is shape-shifting right now. And we're all feeling it in our individual lives. We're feeling it collectively. And I had an experience actually probably for about a year and a half, since around the time that the rage of our grandmother's stuff was coming up for me. I would tell Will, it was like I couldn't see, and I am a fairly intuitive being, and I sense things and see things before they come. And it was like I couldn't see 2 inches in front of me. And I was like, I can't see and I can't breathe. That's what, not that I literally couldn't breathe, but energetically, I'm like, Will's like, what do you need? Will's my fiance. And he's like, what do you need? He's so sweet, so helpful. And I'm like, I just need breathing room. I just need room to breathe. And I had actually booked a trip to Costa Rica for my 30th birthday, which is in like 15 days. So at the 20th of April, I was supposed to be going to Costa Rica for 10 days, where I was literally just going to go off grid and just be. And when all of this stuff started coming with the coronavirus, I was like, how interesting that it's affecting the lungs, which in Chinese medicine is related to grief. And almost like, I mean, I don't typically like to anthropomorphize the planet. And if I were to, it's like the earth has been grieving and hasn't been able to breathe. And like, of course, there's like this anger at, you know, like just like when an infection, when a virus or a bacteria invades our body, we get a fever, right? Heat, fire. We heat up to move that which is not in support of life out of our system.
Ooh, I have so many chills right now.
And just the interesting connections around these different bits and pieces. And I've spent some time, we've got a really beautiful yard here and some beautiful oak trees. And every morning I've just been going out and putting my feet on the earth and just saying greeting and thanks to the earth, to the trees, to the sun, to the sky, to the birds, and just hello and thank you. And I've been getting this sense of like, that is more powerful and valuable than our Western mind would have us believe. But in Native American traditions, indigenous traditions through the world, there's been some sort of reciprocity of, you know, thank you, gratitude, right? Before they would kill animals, they would do, you know, prayers and blessings, and after and during the cooking and during the skinning and all, there was this way where like we were in relationship with life where there was gratitude and this reciprocal energetic exchange. And we've lost that in our Western world. And so kind of bringing this conversation down to earth, so to speak, in practical terms for those who are watching, like we don't have to do massive things right now to relate to rage, to start being different. Something as simple as saying hello to the earth when you walk outside, taking a breath of fresh air and feeling gratitude for the air in your lungs. You know, like just very simple practices, getting us back to the earth, back to our natural way of being. We are animals, and we've forgotten that in this modern world. We think we're above nature, we're beyond this primal part of us, but the fact is we're still very, very primal. And my belief is I live in the paradigm of aligning with what's real and what's true. And so long as we're outside of or beyond or on the side of truth, we're never going to feel harmonious. We're never going to feel aligned. So coming back into contact with our innate way of being citizens of the planet, not just the world, the constructs that humanity has built up, the economy and the healthcare system and education and social niceties and all these things, but coming back to our primal nature. And this relates to rage in that giving ourselves permission to feel and express in healthy ways. So Crystal, I know you said you bumped up against some rage and different emotions. So how have you been meeting yourself today as these emotions have been rising? What have you done to support yourself and honor that which is arising?
Thank you. Yeah. And this relates back to exactly what you're talking about with the practicality of this. Like, okay, so cool. I'm willing. It's like I'm listening to you guys talk. Cool. I'm willing to engage my rage. But like, what does that actually look like? And how do I even bring it up? Well, once you say yes, life will help you. Just like when you say yes to teaching on rage, life will help you to remind you of the purity of the truth of what you know about rage. So today it's looked like countering. I had a moment with a family member, came at me with a certain, you know, just unconscious, like sideways dagger. And I felt it. I'm like, not available. And so I transmuted that through practice. I've been practicing this for a very long time with a very clear boundary of like, clearly you're upset about something. This is not the right time to talk about it. Let's talk about it later. And then I went on about my stuff. They didn't like that. That's none of my business. I go about my day. After that, even though I was able to find my power in that, I still felt like crying afterwards. And so I let myself, because the truth is my inner child was shook. Like, what the heck? just trying to make a smoothie. You know what I'm saying? Like, what the heck is that? So I cried it. I talked it out as well. I have certain people in my life where I can just unfilter everything and it feels so good. Like I can just say all the nasty unconscious. I can swear anything I want. Like having that freedom built in with me helps me actually find the truth of what's actually happening, is to be able to just like, blah, 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 you know, but I'm not doing that to a random stranger. Okay. So flash forward to later in today, where I reach out to a client. I'm like, hey, I had this intuitive nudge. Like, do you need anything from the stores? Because they have some health stuff going on. It's not a good idea for them to be out right now. So I've been checking in. She's like, how did you know? Of course I do. Yes. Can you blah, blah, blah. So I go to Target. I pull into Target. All of a sudden, when I'm like pulling into the parking lot, this guy like pops out from in between two cars looking at his phone, this older guy. And I was already like passing him. But obviously he got startled because he was on his phone, not paying attention. And from my cracked window, and there's some language here, so obviously I've been swearing the whole time. But anyway, he goes, bitch. I'm like, and then he goes, you're like such a fucking shitty driver or something like that. And I'm like, perfect. And this all happened in a moment, right? Like this flash where I'm just like, yeah, of course rage is showing up for me because I'm raging inside too. So like on some level, I'm a match for that. Cool. I get to interact with it on the outside, but also I get to choose my response, because how easy would it have been to just unload and match that unconscious rage? Unconscious just meaning like, it just like flies out without any kind of mindful choice about it, where it's going, who you're talking to. It just like, ugh. And then most people end up feeling bad later that they were like such a jerk to that random person in the Target parking lot. Hopefully he had that thought, who knows? But in that flash of a moment, I'm just like, okay, I get to choose. And so through my cracked window, I said, have a nice day. And he goes, fuck off. So like, perfect. And that was just like a moment where, even though it was messy and slightly passive aggressive myself, right? I'm not saying any of this needs to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, we are all human and we're doing the best that we can. That guy walking through a tension-filled, empty Target parking lot, going in to find toilet paper, God knows what else. Who knows what's happening in his context? He doesn't know what's happening in my context. So I get to pattern interrupt. You know, my lineage would have flown off the handle at that guy easily. But I get to be the pattern interrupt to say, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not agreeing to that unconscious pattern between me and a random human anymore. And so right there, boom, ripples get thrown out into the universe of like what I'm available for and what I'm not. And that's where we get to find the power inside the rage. When we're able to be with that, rage is such a purifier, right? Like you think of a really, really hot fire, anything that could withstand that, it's the core of what that thing was. Everything got burned away on the outside. It's the same thing inside of us, right? So if I'm able to be with the rage, I can usually find a gem inside of that fire and then use that gem and then integrate it into my life somehow. Usually it's some kind of buried truth, right? I got an email yesterday that pricked me. It felt annoying. And I just sat with that and let the fire come up, sorted it out, talked it out. And I'm like, oh, okay, there it is. And I found, you know, some like wound inside of me. It's like, cool, that exists. But also, how do I use that to my advantage now from a healthy, conscious adult perspective? So it's all feedback, but unless we're willing to be with it, we're not going to know what that feedback is.
I love that. I love that.
There it is.
Yeah.
There's one example.
Right.
And that's my style. But like, that's why we're having this conversation, is to show different ways to engage rage, you know. And Aurianna, you have way more fire in you on a normal basis than I ever do, right? So like your flavor of engaging with rage, which I would love to hear more about, looks totally different, I'm sure.
Yeah, being an Aries sun and Vata Pitta dosha type, I do have a lot of fire, and I really appreciate you sharing your perspective because you have a lot of water, right? And you, you know, we all relate to and inhabit these different elements inside of us in different ways. Yeah. And I would like to take off the label of good or bad or right or wrong so much as like life affirmative and generative or destructive, right? Cool. And that's just a distinction that I use inside of myself because I can really get caught in, like, even this morning, like that was the wrong way to treat Will. And I was like, was it? Like, from what lens am I looking through? Like, I was protecting my space. Was it the cleanest, purest, kindest way I could have expressed that boundary? No. And as soon as I was done in my bubble, I went up to him and I apologized and I owned my experience and I told him what was going on inside of me, and we hugged it out, and it was awesome, you know? And that's a way that I've learned to relate to my fire in a different way. Because for me, I have an Aries mother as well. And so her and I, my brother and my dad are both water signs. And then there were 2 Aries in the house. So a lot of fire between her and I growing up. And, you know, and in the best ways, she's like helped me be this, like, she's very vibrant and very hard-headed at the same time, as Aries can be. And so for me, I learned to turn the fire inwards, which manifested as fibromyalgia, endometriosis, irritable bowel syndrome, migraines, just this chronic bracing and tension. And there's some trauma pieces that go along with that as well. But energetically, it was like my own vibrancy, my own life turned inwards. And so for a long time, I just wouldn't express it, and it would just embed itself deeper in my cells and in my psyche. And so then I started to explore and excavate about 1.5 years ago, when it just came up. It was like I couldn't not look at it anymore. And
it's ready.
Yeah, it's like
ready.
Exactly. And then it started coming out on Will, and God bless him, because he has been a trooper through all of this, and it has been, thunder just cracked right as I said that. You know, he's been such a space holder as I've been navigating, and obviously his own healing is coming through this process as well of relating to fire. And so how it looks now is when I feel that zing of that zap of like frustration or irritation, is I get curious with it and I be in inquiry with it. Again, it's a practice. It's not always perfect by any means, but as soon as I notice I'm being sharp, I'm being edgy, I'm being like a little more intense than maybe I need to be, I'm throwing those daggers, right? We all do it from time to time when we're unconscious or moving from our unconscious patterns. And so as soon as I notice that my fire, my intensity is being used in a destructive way, or what feels like incoherent or discordant, I get curious with it. I'm like, what is underneath? And that's what you were talking about, mining the gem.
Yeah.
And I go in, and sometimes it's right there at the surface. I knew what it was this morning as soon as I asked. Other times I got to journal about it, or I got to talk about it, or I got to like move it through my body first before I can really see it. So I'll scream, I'll punch pillows, I'll move my body, I'll dance, I'll do like warrior poses. I'll push against walls, like just like feeling that fire, that fight inside of me. And then I look for the gift in it, I would say has been my practice overall. It's just like, what is this intensity trying to teach me? And how can I be in relationship with it in a way that is more generative and more life affirming and more in service to what I'm truly seeking versus the habituated pattern, right? So underneath all of it, I want connection with my lover, with my partner, right? I want him to feel safe. I want to feel safe. I want there to be harmony in our home. Like, that's what I truly want. But in the moment, sometimes it might come out another way. And Will and I have discerned this distinction between expression and eruption. And that's been huge for me to realize when I'm just like a volcano, just exploding and erupting, versus like a healthy expression. And sometimes that looks like saying the thing that is hard to say and being the mean person or what might be perceived as the mean person from the person on the other side. Saying the thing that needs to be said, saying no to things that don't feel good, saying yes to things that might piss some other people off, right? And a lot of us are going to be called into that.
Yeah.
As this new iteration of humanity is emerging. There are going to be people who want to stay with the status quo, like you were talking about, kind of trying to return to the old ways of being. And then there are going to be those of us who hear the call and say yes to the invitation to build something new. And I'm already pissing people off. I've gotten more messages about and comments about just opinions about the way I'm doing things, I would say, in the last couple of weeks than I've received in a really long time.
Yeah, same.
And it just comes with the territory, right? When we're standing for something, we are inevitably polarizing ourselves, and there are going to be people that don't like it. There's going to be people who have opinions about it. So it's a dance, and it is a practice, and it's an evolution, working with rage, working with anger, working with our fire. And I think it's such a worthy endeavor, not just for ourselves, but for the world, to be in right relationship with that aspect of our being, so that we can use it to our benefit. Fire is great, like,
right? I mean, who doesn't love a bonfire? Hello.
Who doesn't love a bonfire? And some anthropologists I've read say that, who knows if it's actually true, but say that fire is what made us human. That when we discovered fire and we could start to cook food and we could start to, protect ourselves and stay warm and all of that, that is what changed the game for our species.
That's how our brain started to develop beyond just a lizard brain, and our consciousness started to evolve. Yeah. How interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah. It's all just different pieces to consider. We've kind of woven our way through many different bits and pieces. This is one thing I love about you, Crystal, is we're very nonlinear in our conversations. But I hope that for those who are watching and for those who are tuning into the recording, that this was useful for you in some way, and that this sparked something or ignited something inside of you to get curious about. And we were going to invite you to our women's circle on Saturday, but it's blessedly full. So if you're interested in joining future experiences that Crystal and I both are intuitively sensing will be created from here, you can reach out to either one of us and we'll put you on the list, and we'll email you when the time comes. But Crystal, is there anything else that you feel like you want to say or contribute to the space before we wrap up here?
Thank you. Yeah, there's one thing coming through really strongly, and it's the permission to microdose rage. It doesn't have to be, please. The last thing that we want is for you to engage your rage and it to burn you out.
Totally.
Okay. That doesn't help you in these times. And quite frankly, even when I'm holding space for women right now, it's our nervous systems are maxed just by existing right now. So this isn't the time necessarily to like deeply excavate huge amounts of rage. There's enough going on. So, but to be willing to engage it in small moments and small doses, to sit with it when it pops up here and there, just this kind of like, intuitive dance with it. Just more than anything, trust yourself. Let your intuition guide you. Let your body guide you. The minute you hand over the reins to your spirit and your body, you will be in such good hands. So trust your process with that. It does not have to look like anything that we talked about, but in this permission of seeing other ways that we're engaging it, let that then give you the permission to find your own way to engage with it.
I love that distinction. One thing I talk about with my clients is, when things feel edgy, when things feel like we just haven't gone there again, for whatever reason, it's a thing we haven't been looking at. It's been in our blind spot, even just gently turning towards it in our awareness and being like, oh, okay. And then we can go back. And that alone is so powerful. And in somatic experiencing, we talk about titration, right? So easing into, we don't have to go full force into it, diving, excavating, doing lineage work. I mean, hey, if that's what you're called to do, then by all means, go for it.
Yeah.
And Crystal and I have been doing this for a while. It's a really beautiful support system. And so if you feel like going that deep just isn't for you, that's okay. Just consider glancing over and seeing what's there and seeing how it is for you. Is it hard to look, or do you feel like, oh, I actually really want to look further? There's a book, I'll just wrap up with this. Let me double check the name of it. I think it's called Burning Woman by Lucy Pearce.
Subtle. Subtle. I love it.
Right? Yeah, Lucy Pearce, Burning Woman. So that's a beautiful book. There is another one called The Dance of Anger by Harriet Lerner that is more for intimate relationships. Trying to think if there's any other books. Any resources come to mind for you?
Women Who Walk with the Wolves.
Women Who Run with Wolves. Yeah.
Run with Wolves. Yeah. Dr. Clarissa Pinkola Estes. That is like my freaking feminine Bible. And also the book Pussy is interesting. It's not directly on anger, but it's about trusting our internal guidance system with our emotional spectrum. It's really a good one too.
Yeah, that is a really good one. That book awoke something. Yeah. Regina Thomas Howard, I think, is her official name.
I've never known how to say her last name.
Mama Gina, though. That's Mama how she's professionally known. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, 5 rhythms is a really beautiful practice for engaging the elements through the body. Obviously, we're not doing group experiences right now in these quarantine days, but Gabrielle Roth has a couple of books, Sweat Your Prayers and Maps to Ecstasy, I think are her 2 most well-known ones. And yeah, I hope that this conversation just plants a seed and ignites something and creates an invitation for exploration, because it's very interesting times we live in. And those of us who are willing to look, dare I say, we will lead the way for the birth of the new humanity.
You heard it here, folks.
Here we are.
And also keep in mind, please, as a parting message, like, you have 2 guides here that intimately work with this in our client work, within ourselves. So if there is a desire for one-on-one mentoring, please reach out to either one of us. My website is crystalbrandt.com. It is Crystal with a K, Brandt with a DT at the end. I just assembled some resources for grounding, for energy clearing, other delicious conversations like this that I'm having right now that are all divinely inspired. crystalbrandt.com/resources. Check those out as well. I mean, there are ample resources for you the minute you open the store. And also don't let that overwhelm you to, again, just come back to your inner knowing and just move your body the way it needs to. Like, you'll know. You'll know what you need.
Crystal and I are both big fans of letting it be easy. So letting there be ease in the process. Yeah. And to jump off of what Crystal was saying, I have Sensuous coming up, which is my group course, learning to embody the elements, learning to work with our nervous system, learning to work with our self-protective responses. It's a really beautiful space for women to come together and to explore and experiment and experience in ways that I wish every woman had access to this kind of information and space holding. We also have women's circles coming up. Crystal's got different collaborations that she's doing, I'm doing. So stay tuned. We would love to have you join us in one way or another. And thank you for being here. Thanks for being human. Thanks for coming to play human and being here at this very pivotal time in human history. And we're sending our love, and stay safe and stay well.
You're doing great at life. We love you.
Yes.